Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is
Flag Day.
Flag Day. It's Friday in the Riv, TGIF, and the train is coming.
In a year.
But yeah, that's the latest promise. So
Right.
again, we have the promises of all things from Fiola. But I got to tell you, CJ, we got some really good fans. They tell us stuff, and you know me, I love words. I'm the word man. I like to write. And somebody called Fiola something that I think I'm going to adopt it. I'm going to have to co-opt it from somebody. When somebody gives somebody a name that we like, we have to give it. We have to go with it. This is what somebody sent me. Saw him with Coogan at some point in time. He
That was
said,
yesterday at the meeting.
he said, I saw the Wizard of Fall River, Paul Coogan. And listen to this one. This is a good one. The preeminent Fall River parasitic organism, Ken Fiola. Huh? Is that a good one?
Yeah.
The preeminent Fall River parasitic organism. I think that is hysterical. I mean, because let's face it, when he wasn't attached to some kind of politician, he was going bankrupt.
That's right. That's right.
And as soon as he attached himself to government, the man's a legend. But did you see what his comment was about he worries about his developers, and he's saying we need a schedule because we got people that want to relocate. Oh, really? Is that like the 500,000 people you thought were going to come to see the Derby horses?
Right.
These guys, he doesn't care about the people of Fall River, yet Senator Montigny, and you remember Mark, you knew him when he was in the Chamber of Commerce, right?
Yeah.
We knew Mark. I've known Mark for years, Mark Montigny. He made a statement about the effect on its constituency. But he also talked about the negative impact of the MBTA, about how it's driving up housing prices for its constituency, increasing homelessness, making affordable housing virtually impossible to get. But all Kenny thinks about is the rich people and getting rid of the people in Fall River. There you go, the preeminent parasitic organism.
And Ken Fiola actually said to Mr. Ank, who's the general manager or something of the MBTA, that he is not happy about presenting false information to his developers. And he believes that the MBTA owes the people of Fall River an apology. No, Ken, what you're saying is the MBTA owes you an apology. And then he proceeded to say, well, we've waited 30 years for this, so another year isn't going to kill us.
Well, that's bullshit. But listen, like he said, you see where his bread is buttered. He said he doesn't like giving misinformation to his developers.
Right.
To the people who are going to relocate here, the gentrification brigade, which is not going to be any, you are not going to displace 90,000 people in Fall River and replace them with 90,000 people from Boston. You got to be look, this guy has a 40-year history of misrepresenting everything, but getting rich in the process. I wish I still had that report. I gave it to City Councilor Kozak and never got it back, where he promised the carousel was going to be the panacea to all, bringing hundreds of thousands of tourists to Fall River. And the bounty and look, we know it. All we ever get is the checks in the mail, the MBTA is coming, and they dilute it. They lie to everybody. People, wake up. Everybody else in the state knows that the MBTA is a total shit show. It's toast.
Well, it gets
They're
better.
asking for $700 million this year for this year's budget. They're $400 billion in the hole. Everybody around Boston has been complaining about the T for years. We showed the article. You know what we got to do, CJ? We got to bring on Colin and Nelson and have them run that presentation they made with all the data they had about how screwed up the T was, and everybody ignored it and listened to all drank the Kool-Aid and listened to the Joseph Goebbels propaganda mill.
Yeah, Nelson sent us a video file this morning, or actually last night, which was the ad that he ran, I guess, on We Suck at Radio. And I'm having difficulty loading it into the system to play back. It's a 51-second file, but it won't load, so we can't play it. But it spoke about all the issues that Mark Montigny talked about: the increase in housing prices, the gentrification of the community, the increase in homelessness. And what's really interesting is the T, Mr. Eng, could answer the questions about the fare. The fare is going to be $12.25 one way to Boston for a 90-minute ride. $6 if you're a senior and disabled. And free if you're military personnel in uniform, fire and police in uniform, or blind. It gets to be very interesting because they can't guarantee weekend transport. So what good is it? They've said that they're going to look at 26 trips a day from Fall River, or 26 trips in and out of Fall River, or maybe in and out of Fall River and New Bedford for all we know. The problem is, and the problem remains, that Boston, and this Mr. Eng said this, Boston has a capacity issue. They don't have the space to handle the trains. So the schedules for the South Coast Rail is going to be based upon how many trains they can handle, which we said before. Boston can't handle the trains. Boston knows they can't handle the trains. Right now they have a problem with the Middleborough line, which is where New Bedford and Fall River merge. So again, how are they going to run the trains? If you can't get a train into the station, what are you going to do? Sit on the tracks for hours? I don't know. Sounds like it.
Listen, CJ, this whole thing has been nothing more than a campaign to make all the rich people richer. All the developers throughout the state and all now down here, they're all getting rich with their propaganda and promises that they're not going to keep.
Right.
Massachusetts is now going to have the two worst public projects in history. We own number one. The Big Dig is even worse than the bullet train in California. That's the second worst public project ever started in the history of the world. But this is government projects. Listen, everybody, wake up. Smell the roses. Look at the reality.
I don't want to smell the roses. They smell like crap.
They're asking, because they planted them over the cesspool.
That's right.
Yeah, the two cesspools. But listen, they're asking for $700 million from the state. You don't think fares are going to go up? You don't think that service is going to be reduced? They said service maybe no weekend service, maybe reduced service, maybe this, maybe that. Listen, the report 5 years ago, the report when we had, what's his name? I can't even remember his name now. Well, he was the governor. He commissioned the report like 10 years ago that said they're in a hole they'll never get out of. This is going to be another public disaster And nobody can ever privatize this thing because nobody can ever make a profit. They have overexpanded, overextended. They got too many high-paying jobs, like in San Francisco when they get $24 billion for San Francisco. Four people handling that money that are getting between $400,000 and $600,000, and they don't know where any of the money went, and nobody got helped. Listen, the T is going to be a problem. It has far more negatives than it has positives. I don't give a shit. You think you're going to look at, let's do the math. Number one, it's going to not probably have weekend service. Remember when Paulie said, oh, you take your kids up to Fenway Park? And okay, you got 4 kids. Oh, you got 2 kids. Family. Mother, father, 2 kids. $25 a person if they're older. Well, we're going to give them, so you got to pay full fare. So that's $100 just to get to Boston. Then you're going to go to a game that's going to cost you like $500 because Fenway Park, what are you paying now? $15 for a beer? $10 for a hot dog? I mean, box seats were $128 a seat 15 years ago. You're going to go sit in the bleachers? Nobody's going there. Nobody's going to go there. I mean, this is, it's ridiculous. It's folly. They produced. Nelson and Colin did a great job at that presentation. We had it on a show. We showed you newspaper articles, TV. From Channel 5, Channel 4, talking about all the problems that T had to find out. We showed you newspaper articles that said they were billions in the hole. We showed you studies that said they can never get out of the hole they've dug themselves. But our politicians got to keep this myth going so all their rich friends, as Kenny says, my developers, the hell with the people of Fall River. Senator Montigny said, hey, my constituents. Kenny Fiola doesn't have any constituents. When he's sitting up at Boston Bakery having breakfast with Coogan, like he did this morning, I have my spies. They get their marching orders to just keep getting the rich richer. This is going to be a disaster. It's going to be non-functional, and I'm not, this is new for me. I can get one of the vice presidents at Rockland Trust. We went to a luncheon hosted by them 5 years ago. And he sat at my table, and I have witnesses, and I told him, when he talked about the MBTA, I said, this is going to be a total disaster. You can't gentrify places like Fall River. It's never worked. Look at Detroit. 30 years later, they can't populate the city. It's a mess. Certain cities just can't do it. This is not Newton. You can gentrify cities that have certain characteristics, and these are not one of them. These are blue-collar cities. You have to reinvigorate their small businesses and economy a different way. You are not, people live in Newton so they can commute easily into Boston. They're not going to commute an hour and a half up to Boston to go to work when they're rich enough to live in Newton. And if they can pay Boston rents, they can live in Wellesley and Newton and Braintree and all these other places. You people are, this is the biggest pile of BS I've ever heard in my life. And they keep pushing this myth. And it's like, Jesus, do your homework. We tell you all the time. We've got stacks this high, bigger than a screen, of newspaper articles saying what? Find me an article that said the T is working good. It isn't. Ever, anywhere. It's a disaster. But they come down here and they tell you, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. The MBTA is wonderful. It is going to it's going to change this to Valhalla. We're all Vikings who died and went to heaven. Wake up. Next May, it won't be here next May. I guarantee there'll be another problem. I'll tell you what, Ken, I'll bet you $100. And I'm doing it on the air. You want to bet me $100? Send me a text. CJ can hold the money. Yeah, we've been working on this 30 years. No, you guys have been working on it 30 years. Most people in Fall River never gave a fiddler's crap about the MBTA. Because half the people in Fall River, a vacation for them is going to Tiverton. You people are living in the elitist world. People of Fall River never were really that excited over the T. You guys created this. You ginned it all up. You propagandized it. And you sold this Kool-Aid. And then you again had a minority of people voting. That's why people are now going to get active. You know, we're going to suffer the consequences. And kudos to Senator Montigny for remembering the people who we're supposed to be taken care of. Mayor Coogan, the people who live here now, the people who you are defecating all over and trying to convince them it's a mudslide. Everything out of your mouth is about the people who are coming to Fall River, not the people who are here in Fall River. And with that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you.
I think that report you were talking about was generated by Deval Patrick. Is that the report?
That's who it was, Deval Patrick. We've got that report, by the way. And that's the thing about us. If we say we got something, we can prove
we got it.
We got it, baby. We read it on the air.
Yeah.
We got it. We're not making shit up like they do. Oh, it's coming tomorrow. Here it comes. Paulie's going to be on a train to Boston. By what was it, last year?
Yeah.
So now it's May.
Of next year.
Next year. May's gone.
May's gone, so we're talking.
Last time I checked, it was June. Unless we got a time machine. But last time I checked,
I'm not Doctor Who.
another year goes by, and what happens if they don't get their $700,000 from the state?
700 million.
Budget? What's going to happen then? It's going to be another disaster. What are they going to have to do? Oh, we're going to have to cut services. We're going to have to delay extending services. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. Listen, one thing we established before it came down here, one thing that Colin and Nelson said and proved with hard data was that the T is a mess. It's like bringing the bubonic plague into your community. Virtually every city that's ever brought them there is now having a major attack of buyer's remorse because they can't control the development in their city. They're getting people forced out. Rents go through the roof everywhere they go. And, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, there may or may not be a train. 2026. There may be a train. And when it does come here, like I said, I can get the VP from Rockland Trust and the people who are sitting at that table with me. I predicted that when it did come here, 5 years after it did get here, it'll be a homeless encampment. It won't be running. They will drastically reduce their service if they have service at all. Remember, they already yanked it from the Cape. I mean, look, all you people that think this is wonderful, come, just give us a call, contact us. We'll sell you some bridges, couple of mountains, a couple of gold mines, a couple of other things that don't exist either. if you're gullible enough to believe this con, let's look at what government does. They lie and they make money and then they tax you. All their friends get rich, they get rich, and then they tax you. This is what happens. CJ, back to you.
Very interesting. I mean, Patrick's right.
I think it was 10 years for the Braga Bridge, Patrick. 10 years. Yeah. But you know what that is? When it comes to government projects, that's considered warp speed. You know, Scotty, let's go to warp speed. All right? 10 years to paint the bridge. This is what government does. They turn everything into an absolute shit show. It takes forever. It costs 100 times what they told you it would cost, and then you end up paying for it, and they all walk away with their pockets full.
Well, what Fred Almeida said very clearly on our YouTube feed, MBTA equals Department of Excuses. And he's right. It is. It's just nothing but a Department of Excuses.
I'm reading what Scott is saying. He's right. Most of these transit systems, and in Boston, if they paid their subway fares, they might actually be able to sustain it. But remember, New York City is a unique city. I mean, the thing's almost a state. It should be a state. And those people really can't drive around their own city. So they're almost mandated to use their transit system. It's an integral part of their livelihood. But listen, I mean, the MBTA, in case, unfortunately we're dating ourselves, we're old.
We lost you, Chip. I think we lost you. Yeah, I think we lost Chip. He'll have to. There we go.
According to me, here we go. Remember when remember that old song, and he'll never return? He's under the streets of Boston. That song.
He's a man who'll never return.
Yeah, he'll never return. But they don't say under the streets of Fall River.
Nope.
Under the streets of New Bedford, because that was really created as a transit line for metropolitan Boston. So all the bird people could get to Boston. And then somebody got smart, and all the rich guys said, listen, let's pass all these laws where we can take over the entire state and develop over there and take over their land and take things by eminent domain and set up all these rules and shit where we can just ignore everything and do, this is like carpet-bagged city. And that's what they did. And it was like a tentacles of an octopus spreading out from greater Boston. But the reality is that initially was kind of like the New York subway. It's for New York. You go to Washington, D.C., which is, by the way, I don't know if you've ever been on that. I forgot what they call it. The Metro, I think, but whatever they call it. It's the cleanest, nicest subway I was ever on. You can tell what's paying with federal money, because that thing is like, it's like riding in a Mercedes all the time. And it was like, but look, this system is a mess, and politicians did what they did the best. They kept throwing money at it, kept letting it get more and more incompetent, changed leadership a million times, didn't fix any of the problems, had no accountability, and here we are. And with that, I can't, that is what it is. But
Aang turned around and said that he had to change the management team for the South Coast Rail project. I guess they're passing the buck and blaming everybody else for a failure of a system that's nothing but a money pit.
Well, CJ, that's always their thing. Change the management, have a study, and then they change the management, and then they got a whole new set of mismanages.
Right.
They just mismanage. They can't get themselves out of the hole. That report under Deval Patrick said they're gone. They are financially gone. There's
Right.
no way. They even said in that report, and I got a pretty good memory for this stuff, that even with federal bailout, they can't bail that system out. There's not enough money to dump into this to fix it. It's a mess. So what's going to happen? They're going to drastically change the system, increase fees, increase things, change the law. But look, what a surprise. Government lies. Government lies. And now I got to segue into something I got to get in, because I saw this the other day in between shows, and I was just, it was just horrifying. Remember when we talked about manipulation of crime stats?
Yes.
Well, I saw an expert in the field, and he basically has now said, again, they lie. And I remember our police chief said that everybody else lies, but we don't lie, but everybody lies. This is verbatim what he said, because I wrote it down. This is how badly they manipulate the crime stats. And this was saying that they're manipulating the crime stats to make Biden say that crime is going down in the United States, and we all know it's not. He said, propaganda. This is how bad it is. The crime stats are manipulated. First of all, you ready for this one, CJ? You're going to love this one. We talk about crime stats. This is just in part what they did. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C., which are 5 of the highest crime areas in the United States, do not report their statistics to the FBI. So what does the FBI do? They extrapolate numbers, like for murders in New York City. However, the murders in New York City number by the FBI, because they're trying to make it look good for their boss, Joe, are 44% lower than the New York stats. 44%. But even New York manipulates their numbers to try to make it not look as bad. Are you ready for this one? This one killed me. Because you talk about how they manipulate numbers, and we talked about we know how they do it to a degree, but this was a new one. In New York, Paul, listen to this, because you can probably apply this in Fall River, make it even better at Lyon. In New York, they do not classify it as a shooting unless someone is hit by a bullet. So somebody can empty an Uzi, a high-capacity Uzi with 40, 50 rounds, miss everything, and they go, there was no shooting, not classified as a shooting. The numbers can't be trusted, and they are always manipulated. And this is what this, and he had the stats. He said, hate crimes are not even classified with all the hate crimes we have. How many times? We just saw the demonstrations where they were defacing federal government property. There was one person charged, and he wasn't charged with a hate crime. Those are hate crimes. And you say kill the Jews, it's a hate crime. They don't do that. It's all for political gain. And what he said was what we've been saying for a long time. Don't even pay attention to these statistics, because one thing about government, when they want more money for police, they'll say crime's out of control. And when they want to get reelected, they say we got it under control, and they're lying their asses off. He said, don't believe anything they say. Walk outside, use your eyes. It's about the quality of your life. Do you feel safe in your own city? That's the criteria. This is just incredible. Incredible. the cities with the highest crime rate. And what do? They don't charge it as crimes. Now you can shoplift up to what, $1,000 and you don't get charged?
Yeah.
Doesn't go into the stats. I mean, Jesus, does anybody pay attention? There's videos of them ransacking. I mean, now they're getting really bad. They invaded an auto zone and cleaned it out. You know, I can see when, I mean, not that I'm justifying it. I can see when they break into a Gucci store and rob all these $5,000 pocketbooks and go out and sell them for $50. You're going to break into an auto zone? What the hell are you going to, you're going to clean out, what are you going to do? Start, sell batteries on the corner? Sell car wax? I don't know. What? I mean, it's just out of control. They're saying that crime, the crime in the United States is just out of control. And what do? They try to reclassify it so the numbers look better and then tell you to believe it. Just like they tell you to believe that the MBTA, great thing, when everybody knows it's a disaster. How long has it been since Deval Patrick's been in? CJ, refresh my memory. How many governors have we had since Deval Patrick? Are you looking it up, CJ? Are you there? CJ is MIA or I'm MIA. I don't know. There you are. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
We're all having problems.
Wow.
We're all having problems.
You know what it is? The government is jamming our station.
That's it. That's it.
How long has it been since Patrick was in?
In where? Fall River?
Oh, there goes Patrick with the kid. Yeah, we know they've outlawed machine guns, but Patrick, the problem we have with machine guns is the criminals don't care.
Right.
They're not going to go buy a machine gun at a gun store. You can buy them under certain circumstances. They have extremely repressive kinds of things to get those things, but they are actually, some places do have them. But, they still haven't figured out that criminals don't buy guns legally. You can buy anything you want. You can go buy a Law's rocket if you want to pay enough for it. Did you ever see that movie? They made a couple of movies about illegal gun dealers, and it's one of the biggest businesses. They have high capacity canister for Uzis. They have high capacity Uzi rounds and Glock rounds and everything else. They can get anything you want, just like automatic weapons. Automatic weapons are prohibited too. But changing an AR-15 or an M16 from semi-automatic to full automatic, military has the full automatic switch, but you can do that in 5 minutes if you've got the
just need the part.
All you need is the retrofitting. All you need is the retrofitting parts. All you got to do, it takes 5 minutes to change it from semi-automatic to automatic.
And you can get those parts at any gun show.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's absurd. This is the propaganda they tell you. They make you feel safe. Oh, we're going to pass some more gun laws. Yeah, and that will keep a law-abiding citizen from getting a gun. It will make it as hard as possible for you to defend yourself with a low capacity. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to restrict you to one bullet. You'd be like Barney Fife. You get one bullet. Or something like that. But the criminals will go out and they show up with automatic weapons and high capacity magazines. And I mean, just look at the cartels. They got actual armies. They've got rockets, rocket launches. They got everything. They've got basically, they are not, they're not gangs anymore. They're literally armies. So
Exactly.
illegal arms is one of the biggest black markets we have in the world.
And
Behind
in and of
drugs is
itself,
probably
in
the
and of
second
itself, the
biggest.
cartels are a country. In and of itself, the cartels are a country. They're their own country. So it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, and I just can't believe that we've gotten to this point in our society that we're still dealing with crime and people are still faking the numbers. And we've said that about Fall Rivers numbers. They're not accurate. They're not accurate. And now we have an FBI informant, an FBI analyst, whatever he is, who says they're not accurate. We manipulate those numbers. And we've known that for a long time. We've known that for a long time. That's for sure. So remember that. I just have one thing. If you're a senior, if you have a health condition, if you're disabled, the Forward Police Department has kicked off a program where they put a lockbox on your property, which will hold a key to your doors so that they can gain access during a fire, in a medical emergency. If you're unable to answer the door, this way they're not kicking your door down. Okay? And Chip's work in the fire department, he can tell you, having a key to a locked door is probably a lot easier than taking the axes and busting it down. Okay? It's also a lot cheaper.
It's called a Knox box.
Yeah.
It's called a Knox box, and it's the only problem with those boxes are you have to be very, I would have to really look at the policy they're going to use that Knox box, because I know in a fire department the only people box key were the chiefs, and that key did not ever leave the chief's cars.
Right.
No lieutenant or captain or anybody out on the red. You can't give one of those things to everybody. There were only 2 keys, one for each chief on duty. And when you get on duty, you had that Knox box key. There was an additional key in case you broke it or something in a cold weather. There was one up at headquarters, and those keys were closely monitored, because let's face it, there are a lot of buildings. I mean, you got the key to get into every place, every commercial building fundamentally in the city of Fall River.
Right.
If somebody ever got their mitts on that key, it'd be a horror show. And when you're starting to talk about private residences, and it's a good idea to a degree, but I mean, I'm wondering what we'll have to check into that.
From what I understand, and the documents I saw that the people have to sign, okay, the key cannot be used for warrants to be served, for arrests, for search. Can't be used for any of those things. It can only be used for a welfare check, an emergency call, somebody who's not responding to the door on an emergency call, the old I've fallen and I can't get up type of situation. There is a liability waiver on the Fall River Police Department, but the code to access the box is kept in the computer. So anybody who accesses those computers, there's a record of who accessed the code. So I like the idea personally. And I think that a lot of people who need it will. Yesterday was the first day they started installing the boxes, and we'll see what happens with them. We'll see if we hear any problems.
Well, now that you're saying that, I didn't see that. I'm going to have to look at it. So maybe these things are digitally accessed, where you got a code that you punch in. So it's different than a key,
Right.
which we used. And so if there's a digital access, but I don't know if they're going to change the codes all the time. and every car will have a code, or you have to access it through the computer, and blah blah blah. But I mean, I also look at the other side that if somebody gets their mitts on it, the code or something like that, they're gonna. I don't know if they're gonna change the code because these we have some pretty serious. And thank you, Patrick, for telling me that Deval Patrick was in office from '07 to 15. So we're almost 10 years away from the end of his tenure when that report was made that said that and that was at the beginning, I believe, of his tenure which is more like '07, '08 when that report came out. So, the T's been a mess. But like I said, there's always a concern about those things when people have access, and it's a good idea. I don't know, maybe because I like to wreck things. Rather than if I had somebody who needed access to the building, I would not give somebody a key to the house. I would say, if they don't answer the door, break the door down. It doesn't cost that much to put a door down. But if they ransack your house and take all your valuables, it might cost you a lot more. But that's just my opinion.
Right.
It sounds like a good idea on paper, but when you got a lot of criminals running around your streets, but they'll break your door down too. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But I'm interested in seeing the specifics of this program because, like I said, it's a big liability, and I don't care what liability waiver you find.
Yeah.
There will be lawsuits if something happens.
I'm sure at some point there will. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. I want you to have a great weekend. And dads, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Chip. Remember, stay safe.
Too.
Thank you.
And all you fathers out there, make sure your kids pay for your dinners.
That's it. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great day.